We are here because of the future of InsurTech with Z47 and NSRCEL. That's an event we're hosting, sort of focused on all the developments in insurance and InsurTech. We have very distinguished panelists with us here today. Before that, I would just like to call upon Ganesh sir to sort of talk a little bit about NSRCEL, and then we can sort of.
Sir, so embarrassing. I'm younger than you. Thanks, Harish. It's part to stand in the Z47 office and say, welcome to NSRCEL. Super cool. I wish I could say also welcome to all the pools. I can.
Yeah.
For those of you who may not be aware, I hope you do. We are IIM Bangalore Center for Entrepreneurship. Some of our best work is in tech and deep tech startups. Ideally, pre-series A, pre-growth, post MVPs, where our best business incubation work gets done. And to bring in the other dimensions that a startup journey needs. One part is in access to technology, and the other part is access to capital. In both of them, we work with a fairly exhaustive set of partners: science and technology labs, corporate innovation, and of course, risk capital that can drive that innovation. One big investment that, in partnership with the Karnataka government and the Karnataka Digital Ecology Initiative, is in the area of fintech and insurtech, where in one part we're looking at how we can inject more innovation in the fintech insurtech ecosystem. And of course, there is a lot of excitement at the core, which is areas like consumer lending and so on. We're also looking at exciting areas that might be beyond the core. Climate financing, we were just talking about tokenization in assets. I was talking to someone, a venture of ours, who's trying to IPO a forest. And who knows, will happen. So we're also seeing innovation that can give a greater sense of dynamism to the ecosystem, also expand the scope of fintech and insurtech to the broader people that represent the country. And that's a big effort that we're trying to bring in partnership with the Karnataka government, looking, of course, at talent that might be across the country. And the hope is that, much like Mumbai, Bangalore potentially could be a large center of innovation in the fintech and insurtech spaces. That's our ambition. And as part of that journey, partnership with Z47, deeply appreciative about the partnership, about the ways in which we can engage, not just because there is significant value in risk capital that needs to get injected in space, but your sheer knowledge and network of the ecosystem that we believe a lot of innovators, startup founders beyond our respective portfolios can hugely benefit from, and that trickle-down effect is of great value to us. Once more, welcome to this evening, and looking forward to an exciting conversation.
Thank you, sir. This debate is a two-part series. Part one was held at IIM Bangalore last Saturday, where we hosted Shri Devashish Panda sir, who was the ex-chairman of IRDAI. And sort of exchanged a lot of candid thoughts in a closed room. Many of you were there, so thank you for that as well. This is part two, where we have Anup sir from ICICI Prudential and Ankit from InsuranceDekho and Vikram from Z47. So without a much delay, I'd like to call upon Anup sir, who's the MD and CEO of ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. I don't think he needs an introduction. 30 years banking, financial services, etc. Was the PD at ICICI Bank, held multiple roles across the group, MBA, CEO, ICICI Securities, and is now obviously driving life insurance and insurance penetration in India. Sir is also a distinguished alumni awardee from IIT Kanpur, and he's also on various committees by RBI and SEBI, a bunch of matters. Thank you, sir. Thanks for gracing the event. Thanks for being with us.
That's why you should come to panels, to hear about you.
Next, I'd like to call upon Ankit. Please join us. Ankit is the co-founder and CEO of InsuranceDekho. Again, needs no introduction. InsuranceDekho is one of India's largest insurance distribution players. There are 90,000 plus agents, work with 45 plus insurance partners, and probably have maybe like all PIN codes, 98% of PIN codes in India are serviced by InsuranceDekho partners. It's a phygital approach wherein there are a lot of partners sort of are enrolled and then go and distribute insurance. So to a lot of the customers. Who sort of he's a CA with this also from University of Delhi. And Insurance is incidentally spun out of Karthiko Group in 2017, and then Ankit and team have sort of raised one of the largest Series A rounds in 2022. And post that, it's been operating as an independent company and now scaled to sort of large scaled and now are the top two players in the BOSP model in India. Thanks Ankit for joining us. Next, I'll call Vikram. Vikram's an MP at Z47. He leads our FinTech financial services and enterprise AI practices. Has been with the firm for 15 years. Led many of our marquee investments like Razorpay, 5-star, Off Business, Daily Hunt, and Reserve, Jupiter, many more. So without much ado, I'd love to get started, and maybe I'll start with Anup sir. And one of the biggest questions is, there's been the payments wave, there's been the lending wave. Everyone asks, when is the insurance wave? The same 3-4% penetration has been around for the last 10 years. And we've also not made an investment, but keep writing it in our thesis that aayega. So I wanted to understand, how do you think about the penetration in India? How do you think about when the insurance movement for India is here?
No, I think a great question, because see, there is no dearth of opportunity in this space, but real question that we have to always ask is that if there is an opportunity, why is it not getting unlocked? What does it need to get unlocked? Now, I come from a life insurance space. Life insurance space is a very different space than general insurance space. In fact, most of the innovations or most of the capital has gone into general insurance. Life insurance, generally the history shows that life insurance companies, they get bankrupted, but they don't get disrupted. Why I'm saying is that life insurance, there is a context to life insurance. It's a very long-term business, and it has a very high leverage. People don't understand how much of a leverage, and I want to give you a context. See, in banking, when you have a capital adequacy of 20%, essentially it means 20% is capital and 80 rupees is the deposits. And then you lend 100 rupees. Out of that 100 rupees that you lend, 25 rupees goes in GSEP, so there is no capital loss. And of the balance, 80% is secured. So essentially, you have something. And so essentially unsecured is only 50-20%. You come to life insurance for 25,000 rupees, when you give a crore of sum assured, the leverage is 400 times. 400 times. Not 4 times, not 5 times, 400 times. If you do a group term, which is employer, I'm sure all of you will have some 4 lakhs, 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs. There at this pricing, at the current pricing, the leverage is 1,000 times. For 1 rupee, you get 1,000 rupees of cover. And then you know that the whole game of fraud and whole game of pricing is a very imperfect pricing. And so the risk is not priced that finely. It's very difficult to find mortality that finely. And so what happens is, over a period of time, protection as a category, you require lots and lots of data, and you require lots and lots of ability to price it on one hand and ability to manage frauds on the other hand. So that is one part of the protection side. On the saving side of the business, which is also a very large business, what happens is that you get price. So there are two things. You do growth, which is ULIP type, which is okay, where there is not so much of an issue. But the moment you get into traditional or guaranteed products, you get priced off GSEC, government securities, because 40 years, 50 years, you know what kind of assets is available, and you can't buy an infra assets on that. No, nothing lasts for 50 years. And so if it is GSEC, then you are priced off the GSEC. And so the play is very little. So you get priced. So on one hand, the boundary condition is GSEC pricing. On the other hand, the boundary condition is distributor will take commission. And so the play is very little. Now the play then becomes what? Persistency. That the people should be able to pay for 50 years or 50 years or 20 years. In a country like India, where per capita is very low and where people are not able to pay EMIs, as you would have seen from many of your
they pay EMIs to our portfolio, they don't pay to other people.
So जब यहाँ EMI pay नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, where the score will go down and all of it, there are punitive actions. For 50 years to pay regularly, insurance premium is a tall ask. And so what happens in India, the penetration, coming to penetration essentially happens to the credit life portfolio. Where if you're taking a loan, because low per capita countries, they take a lot of loan. Because यार खाने का है नहीं पैसे, वो कहाँ मतलब protection. So when you take a loan, you take a protection against loan. So credit protect is very, very highly penetrated in India. So actually it's a misnomer that we are not penetrated. The number of policies is around 35 crores. The number of life and the 35 crores and not 40 crores of population. Also the बच्चे हटा दो तुम वहाँ से. So basically 1:2, 1:3 is the life insurance policy. Yeah? So it is not under-penetrated by number of policies. It is under-penetrated by way of how much coverage you have. Because that's a different dimension. And we don't sometimes get that dimension. Because, see, we must understand the context of India that in a low per capita country, बचाने को कुछ है नहीं उतना. But what is there to protect? Where you are struggling for your own life. समझा? So what you have to protect is the loan that you have taken. That is adequately protected in India. In fact, you know the attachment levels are 90% plus. So, my experience, of 33 years is individually, we can discuss low IQ, high IQ, intelligent people, non-intelligent people. Society as a whole in general has very high wisdom in the context in which they operate. Always. So if there is low penetration, there is a very good reason why there is a low penetration. Very good reason. China, but China is better, by the way. You're better than China because China also has same characteristics. Low per capita, it is moving up, ultra high people. So there is a context in which you have to understand. We'll discuss a little bit more on life insurance as a general. General is a one-year product. You can price well before you get out. So you will see that capital is coming in general insurance. Capital is not coming in life insurance. And then the capital is coming in distribution. Because distribution में you don't have to take all the risk. All that risk doesn't devolve onto you. Claims आ गया इनका तो रिस्क है नहीं, persistency गिर गया इनका तो रिस्क है नहीं. So यहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा आएगा. Manufacturing में थोड़ा issue.
So I think Ankit, then the question is to you basically, and this was actually an important point that came up even in the part 1 session. So there are 3 aspects to penetration. There is how many lives, there is what degree to of cover they have, and then the upper layer of the top 10, 15, 20 million Indians, they have 2-3 policies, right? So how do we think about penetration? And you're obviously serving the grassroots level. Why don't you sort of throw some light on what are you seeing as reasons, as Anup sir said? Is it really that people don't believe that?
Ankit हमारा भी बेचता है हाँ, तो कुछ बोलेगा तो भाई कह दियो.
Do they have nothing to protect? Or
सर के सामने तो ऐसे भी कुछ बोल नहीं सकता. Well, I was just telling Vikram that 45 minutes which I get with sir is more like a MBA lesson for me, and I'm sure you guys are realizing why I said that. But देखिए मैं सर की बात से ना एकदम सहमत हूँ. हम while we sit in Bangalore, we sit in Gurgaon, we sit in this fancy coffee shops, this fancy offices, and we believe this is India. This is not India. I just come back from a tour of Bihar, where I was sitting in a car with one of India's biggest news reporters, and I was telling her कि हम insurance करते हैं, हम X करते हैं, Y करते हैं. And then all of a sudden she said, भैया से पूछते हैं इन्होंने insurance कराई है? And we asked the driver, insurance है? नहीं हमने insurance नहीं कराई है. तो हमने पूछा क्यों? 55,000 रुपये का insurance कौन कराएगा? See, you have to understand that we have to solve for affordability in the country, right? You can either solve for affordability by creating a plain vanilla feature, right, product. इसमें आप बोलो कि मैं सिर्फ ABC कवर कर रहा हूँ, बट उसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि it is a regulated product, right? So anything that we do and regulated product with a cost of human life attached to it, right? So there's a humanitarian angle and there's a regulatory angle. So any action on the product designing that the insurance companies take, right, they have to keep these 2 factors in mind. So, and then, I agree with sir, there is a high cost of intermediary, right? So it is not poor distributors like us, it is the banca assurance channel or it is the OEM channel. And sir will not say that obviously, but it is the banca assurance channel or the OEM channel which is responsible for it, right? But that said, the cost of intermediation in this channel is extremely high. If we need to bring down the pricing and make insurance distribution affordable,
we will need to solve for that, right? And all of your smart folks, you've done a lot of Excel sheet modeling. There's something called operating leverage, right? We will need to leverage on AI to create a operating leverage to the model, right? Today, while 40% of the cost may be because of intermediation, is another 20% of cost, which is because of human intervention, which we have to do in claim settlement, which we have to do in servicing, which we have to do in training of our agent partners, training of our sales folks, etc., right? At least can we solve for that 20%? Third, we have to make the product simple and understandable. टुडे क्या लोग अपने आप को प्रोटेक्ट करना चाहते हैं? यस, अपने आप को प्रोटेक्ट करना चाहते हैं, बट उनको ये ट्रस्ट नहीं है कि इस प्रोडक्ट से क्या जब मेरे को ज़रूरत होगी तब मेरे को वो प्रोटेक्शन मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा, राइट? आई हैव सीन न्यूमरस केसेस ड्यूरिंग कोविड वेयर इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज वेंट आउट ऑफ देयर वे टू मेक श्योर क्लेम्स गेट सेटल्ड, बट दो स्टोरीज नीड टू get percolated down to the grassroots level, where people are told that these people were suffering during COVID and insurance companies stood by them in both life and GI space and helped settle for claims. So I think one missing angle which we all ignore is the lack of trust. So for me, if you want me to summarize, I think it's three things. One, affordability needs to be solved. Second, product needs to be made more simple, keeping in mind the two angles that we spoke about. Third, we need to propagate. जैसे म्यूचुअल फंड के लिए आज के दिन हर कोई कहता है ना म्यूचुअल फंड सही है, that is why whether the market is giving return or not, the monthly SIP flows are increasing, right? Similarly, we need to market and say insurance सही है और insurance आपके साथ है.
Got it. I think, Vikram, there are 25 logos. I was just counting, but there is no insurance logo there.
Yeah.
Is there a reason? And I'm sure a lot of founders in the room would like to know.
So, what Anup sir said, I'll say in a different way. If you think about a person's relationship with money and therefore our country's relationship with money and, how that follows, once you get some money, you like to spend it. That usually leads to some easy payment instruments that you want and leads to a payment ecosystem. Then you say, okay, I have some money. How do I stretch my purchase? Or I can afford X. Can I do a little bit more? And you start planning some purchases, and that leads to a lending ecosystem and so on. You start, actually the second relationship usually starts with the lowest product. Once you have a little bit more, then you start investing. And then once you think that actually my life is worth something and the assets that I've actually accumulated are worth a lot, that's when you start ending up building more and more insurance. So if you look at even just overall how financial services landscape has evolved, it's actually taken these stages. And when you look at tech penetration, how it has evolved, has actually taken these stages. And then there is this underlying per capita. If you look at that same thing for the country, then you see the same relationship that he just said, which is over a period of time, as you start actually putting a larger NPV on your life in some sense, as well as you actually start thinking about how many assets I need to protect, you start seeing this penetration of insurance. I would say we're at that tipping point where you have enough, where you're starting to see that. So that's one overall economic argument for why there is a movement in insurance and InsurTech, right? So that's one. Second is from an enabling ecosystem perspective, at least for me, in the early days, I've been doing it 15 years, early days of trying to make a venture investment, we were looking for regulatory consistency. And frankly, 2010 and that period onward, we just couldn't find it. It was probably the most choppy regulatory environment to invest. So it's very hard to actually invest into a choppy regulatory environment. Now it seems like there is a more enabling environment. And then it's actually products and business models. If I look at today, what does it take? I think that Ankit put it really well, that there is this huge distribution friction because it's a complex product to distribute, educate, and then there is an history of, I won't get into which channel and so on has caused it, but there is a history of, not selling the right product to the right people and so on over a period of time. And so you have this enormous distribution friction. The question is, can it go down? And it's, at least from our perspective, we're seeing three things really bringing it down. Number one is sort of whatever you call it, affinity, attachment. Now you're calling it embedded insurance, but in some way that actually drives the first experience for people saying, I have a loan, let me actually insure it. I have a trip, let me insure it. So there is somebody experiences it some way, and then that actually spurs that person to actually drive. So there's that affinity. Second is physical, and these guys have done a phenomenal job of these POSP models. And then the third is this adoption of AI. I truly do think both in wealth and insurance, AI actually lends itself really, really well. And I think we're going to talk about it. I was talking to Ankit before, and he was actually sharing some amazing numbers on how much AI is actually driving penetration or actually driving the operating leverage as it penetrates into their teams and so on. So those are three things I think where it seems like you can actually bring down this adoption and distribution friction in some way.
Yeah, no, I'm a VC, so I have to cover AI. So, but just to keep the conversation real, today we'll sort of try to get to the real use cases and how it's sort of helping, and then we'll also come over to Q&A so we can spend some time on that. But Anup sir, Ankit's argument is forget the 40% cost, let's look at the 20% cost. And I can see why he's saying that. But
Correct.
firstly, how much of AI are you seeing? So when we think of AI, we typically divide it into two things, right? There's innovation in AI, where the models are being built, and a lot of the fundamental stuff that's happening, and then there is a lot of stuff in India that is happening more on the compounding and productivity and cost saving part of AI. I'm assuming the applications in insurance is in the second latter part. Can you just talk us through what you're seeing at ICICI Prudential and
No, so we are a very, very big users of AI. In fact, I think we'll be the only company that at least I know, we have 7 patents, on claims and fraud management. The way we look at AI is, let's first just demystify AI a little bit. What is this whole thing about AI? तो dot AI लग के तो वहाँ तो rocket लग गया था. What does AI do? Basically, there is an inference. Okay, there is an inference, and then there is a quality of inference, and then there is a cost of inference. Right? And so, if we were to sort of put the applicability of it in any sphere, particularly insurance, there are areas where if you increase the quality of inference, you start to gain fraud, for example. You increase the quality of inference of frauds and you cut frauds. It may not be 1.0 probability, but still you start to improve, and then you start to look at it from a cost perspective. So initially, so wherever you don't want inference and as 1.0 probability, you can start to use it. On the other hand, when you start to get to a place where inference can be anybody, a chat GPT, एक poem लिख दो, inference का कुछ है ही नहीं उसमें, तो what is that inference? They can write anything, you will be quite happy with it. But that is not very useful. It is useful for content creations. So there are aspects I would want all of you to think through, that how do you use AI in day-to-day stuff? So claims management, fraud management, lapsation, income estimation, those are all places where if you use AI using all the data which is available today, because it is not just AI. See, AI also requires two things. AI requires a lot of data, and also requires training on that data so that you are able to get inference. And so there is a cost of inference, there is a quality of inference. Okay, and then on the other hand, you have to see for the thing where you are using it, how critical it is to have probability or certainty equal to 1. For example, landing gears in the aeroplane. Will you ever use AI in landing gears and say, नहीं मैं तो 6 sigma हो गया, हर दिन फूटता रहेगा plane? I'm just telling you that where you can use. But can you use it for scheduling? Of course, you can scheduling. You don't have to be like 1.00. So inside out, all places where there is repetition. Okay, you can use tech and you can also use AI. Every places where there is a pattern. Training, for example, there is a pattern. Okay, training there is a pattern, and it can self-learn also. So we have an AI coach, so you can speak to the coach and it will rank it and it will give you back. So it is faster to train yourself, and you don't have to have training, and plus it is better than people, because human beings are a big problem hai, and it's not consistent. People are not consistent. That's the problem. फिर 11 बजे थक जाएगा रात को, ये थकता नहीं है. So there is a lot of consistency. So I would say that starting from operations, claims, fraud management, lapsation, your claims, and then pure ops, claim settlement, pattern recognition, on the distribution side, micro markets analysis, all those places, we are using it very well. Where we are not able to use is also very important. It is impossible to model mortality. पता नहीं लगता है. वो जिम कर रहा है बेचारा आजकल तो 40-45 years की स्लो ही आ जाती है उसकी. It's very difficult to model mortality. It is very difficult to model morbidity. कि कौन बीमार पड़ेगा because it is in genes. Now, of course, you can go to the genes and you can do the gene therapy, but it is very expensive. So unless that cost comes down, you can't do that. Those are the places where there are mortality tables and you have morbidity because it is all expected value, which is, what is the probability that a thing will happen multiplied by expected value, yes, and what is the amount that you have to do, because the amount is 400 times and 1000 times. A little bit of probability here and there, we cannot take a chance. So what happens is insurance also becomes a very conservative place. Okay, and because it is very conservative, and once you enter a contract, you have to, the contracts are very long, you can't get out of the contract. It's a very important thing. The lending, I have done lending and I have done capital market. See, capital market, what happens is, every day you can change the balance sheet if you want. Lending after 3 months, 6 months, you will change the balance sheet. Mortgage balance sheet also changes after 7 years. Repay kar deta hai. Although it is 15 years. Insurance balance sheet, they don't change for 15 years. And once a contract is in, uski आत्मा भटकेगी, निकाल नहीं सकते हो तुम उसको. By contract. You can't take him out. And after 3 years, you have to settle the claim even if it is fraudulent, by the way. So what happens is, these are all nuances that we must understand, because if you are doing startup, you should not try to solve a problem which has externalities in it, where you don't have control. So there are many areas in insurance where we are using it, where externality is not a constraint, and it is giving very good results. And so if you were to sort of break up, let's say protection as a product, if you were to break up the total P&L of that and annuitize it, because upfront commission is high, then it is very low and all that. Around 60-65% is claims. So claims, again, you can use AI to reduce the claim. 20-25% will be distribution plus other OPEX, where 70% will be distribution, 30% will be other OPEX. And the total sort of margin will be between 5-10% annualized. And so 65-70% certainly you can use AI to reduce claims, get better profiling, okay, get enhanced due diligence. After coming in, also you can do a due diligence, because if the disclosure is wrong and you figure out there is a wrong disclosure, material non-disclosure, you will take them out before the claims hit, etc. So all that you can do. In 25-30% of the cost, certainly you can cut the cost. Cost, of course, your operating leverage cost has to be cut. The variable distribution cost. Also, actually, if you peel the variable distribution cost, for example, his variable also will be, 70-30. 70 will be variable, 30 will be figure, training, varying, ye wo kar. See, training, varying, this is a large scale training. It's boiling the ocean. 50% attrition, people are coming, people are going, pata hi nahi kahan aa raha hai, kahan ja raha hai. All that has to be dealt. All that has to be trained well. But all those places you can do, because the inference probability need not be one, and so there is upside. But you need to have scale to use AI. See, otherwise subscale it's not very useful. Fortunately, we have scale. Yes, scale. No, we can use it. So many areas where you can use, but as a startup, what is your point of entry is very important.
Actually, just double click on that thing that you need the scale for AI. Well, I hosted a group of founders in the ecosystem, and almost everyone said, show me the use case, then I will invest. But both of you seem to have gone in and said we will make investments from day zero. What is that tipping point of scale at which it becomes worth it, or it would not have been worth it for you?
No, scale means, see what is scale? See, there is a fixed cost of AI. It's not that cheap. See, IT mein na, I'm sure you would have understood by now, all of you have understood by now. दिखता कुछ है, बिकता कुछ है. वो आएगा तो बोलेगा हम कुछ भी कर देंगे, ये कर देंगे, होगा POC कर देंगे, जैसे POC फ्री है, मतलब टाइम, एनर्जी, एफर्ट, ये सब फ्री है, मतलब POC फ्री में सब फ्री है. क्या POC फ्री में कर दोगे? 6 महीने अटका दोगे यार जिंदगी का. हाँ. तो what I'm saying is that there is no, you have to pick up the big problems. See, big and painful problems are the one to pick up. Claims, for example, where it is 1:1000, 1:400. Those are the areas to pick up. See, don't pick up areas which are generic in nature. I will increase productivity of your agents. पूरी दुनिया प्रोडक्टिविटी ऑफ एजेंट्स कर रही है, सो 150 साल से कर रही है. So pickup places, I always look for asymmetric leverage of investments. मतलब personally I always look at asymmetric leverage. डाला तो अपसाइड होनी चाहिए expected value की. That's how I look at investments. So these are the places where you can really do pattern recognition, fraud management. People pay for it यार, because पैसा बचता है. ये प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाएंगे हम. अरे प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ा रहे हैं यार लोग, यार दुनिया बढ़ा रहे हैं प्रोडक्टिविटी यार. प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाया, सभी बढ़ा रहे हैं प्रोडक्टिविटी. क्या करेगा वो, यही क्या करेगा प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ा के, खर्चा और बढ़ा देगा.
Ankit, are you seeing any, maybe if you can give us a couple of use cases you're doing or quantify the benefit of AI for and what
So,
you're doing,
you know,
sort of.
before we actually get to that part, I think I'll second what Sir has said. This is an expensive technology. Please do not go by the fad that, you know, everybody is talking about AI, इसलिए मेरे को AI implement करना है. You need to have a certain size and scale of operations for you to actually see benefit out of AI, right? I think the way we've broken down our AI, usages, we've broken it down into 3 parts. One is sourcing, second is servicing, third is fraud management. So clearly in sourcing, we used it for training our agent partners and training our sales folks. Broadly 2200 लोगों की कंपनी है, उसमें से 1600 से 1700 लोग 3-3.5 लाख रुपए की तनख्वाह पे हैं. अब इस सैलरी पैड पे अगर किसी को कोई 500,000 रुपये भी महीने का ज़्यादा देता है तो तुरंत चेंज कर लेगा, राइट? सो वी रियलाइज दैट वी हैड अ टीम ऑफ सेंट्रल ट्रेनर्स, रीजनल ट्रेनर्स, virtual trainers, and there was inconsistency in the quality of training. One trainer was star ranked for one particular batch, and for the other batch he was, say, a 1 rater or a 2 rater, right? So there was extreme inconsistency. We said, can we standardize training? At least 50 to 70% of our training, right, we were able to standardize, and we've seen the quality of training improve. We've seen the cost of our training department come down, right? So that is part A. Then we were running a lot of physical as well as virtual training sessions for our agent partners. There again, when we started leveraging on AI, so what we did is we started recording all the training sessions. Then we got a bot involved, and then now that bot is going out and training our agent partners virtually, and we've seen it work extremely well. Third, we launched a Ask Me Anything bot. होता क्या था कि हमारे RMs का 70 से 80% टाइम ना एजेंट्स की क्वेरी सॉल्व करने में चला जाता था. इस प्रोडक्ट में ये इंक्लूडेड है, नहीं है. एंड टुडे वी वर्क विद 50 इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज. ईच इंश्योरेंस कंपनी इन मल्टीपल प्रोडक्ट्स, राइट? सो ब्रॉडली एनी गिवन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे 200 से 250 प्रोडक्ट हम बेचते हैं, और हर प्रोडक्ट का अलग कॉम्बिनेशन है. तो 2000 कॉम्बिनेशन एक RM को भी नहीं पता होता था, तो RM को भी रिस्पॉन्ड करने में टाइम लगता था. So this Ask Me Anything bot has helped reduce the TAT of those queries and created a better experience for our agent partners, and made, I'm afraid of using the word productive, but has made the life of our sales folks easier, right? So that's part one. Second, what we did in servicing ना, मतलब होता है कि जब कंपनी बड़ी होती है ना, तो you just have fat. Everybody comes and says कि मेरे को यहाँ पे 5 लोग चाहिए, उस काम के लिए 10 लोग चाहिए. तो हमने 6 महीने पहले पूछना स्टार्ट कर दिया कि हम टेक्नोलॉजी से इसको सॉल्व कर सकते हैं. सो फर्स्ट वी सॉल्व फॉर आर इनबाउंड कॉल सेंटर, राइट? सो टुडे आर इनबाउंड कॉल सेंटर, roughly 85% of our calls today are handled by a bot, and we've seen them being handled very well. Then we said, can we solve it for email communications? That we solved. But I think the biggest impact that we saw was in our renewal department, right? So renewal department, 31st March, we had 50 to 60 odd callers there. Today we are operating at much than that number, and we are being able to deliver twice the 2x in terms of persistency, in terms of productivity, in terms of business volume there, right? So is second. The third, I think, given that there's always a level of question mark over our business model कि यार हम agents के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, वो humans है, fraud करेंगे, XYZ. I think we leverage on AI very effectively to do fraud control. क्योंकि जब हम लाइफ का बिजनेस सोर्स करते थे, डेड मैन केसेस बहुत हो रहा है, आइडेंटिटी इम्पर्सनेशन बहुत हो रहा होता था, तो वहाँ पे हमने यूज़ किया. वी वर एबल टू सॉल्व फॉर इट. देन वी क्रिएटेड एनालिटिकल मॉडल्स, राइट, which are powered partly by AI. And उससे we were able to detect transaction patterns कि ये agent का अगर ये pattern है तो यहाँ पे fraud होगा, and automatically we started blocking down those transactions, and that helped us solve for our loss ratios. So is it a great tool? Yes, it's a great tool, but there's a cost attached to it. If you use it effectively, it will make your business better and create an operating leverage for you, right?
Yeah, I think one of the questions that we've had is that amongst all the subsectors that we see in fintech, and maybe Vikram, you can pick this up. In ShoreTech, first to use AI, you have to have some tech at the back end, right? So there's a lot of companies now that we are seeing who are sort of talking about first transforming the back end, or what we call the bank tech movement of insurance, or hollowing the core, or sort of attacking the past and then building a microservices architecture so that you can get into saturized products, you can get into AI, you can get into a lot of the stuff we are talking here. And maybe because we have seen a lot of company creation in the last 3 years. So is the bank tech moment of insurance or InsurTech here? So is that a precursor to AI?
So just on the previous topic on just AI, right? I think both of them just alluded to the fact that without that scale, they wouldn't have been confident of making these investments, and they wouldn't have been able to get the outcomes that they can, right? Now, I just want to separate two kinds of use cases, right? One are use cases where it's okay, and when we are using AI, we are saying generative AI, right? There's different, when you say generative AI, there's many use cases. When generative AI is 85-90% accurate, it hallucinates a little bit, it's okay, right? Because when you're talking in GPT, that's where it is. Then when you have vertical specific use cases, especially financial services, you need to be at the 99.999%, otherwise it is, and you need an outcome based agent, otherwise it's not okay, which then means the cost is actually very high, right? And but I would say that there are actually use cases, and at least we are seeing it across financial services companies, and I haven't, while they were talking about applying that same framework to insurance, but at least there is a lot of financial services place where we can see that AI-based consumer interfaces are actually crafting very nice journeys, which are actually at least ensuring that the right people come to the right product in some way. And that is a 85-90% accuracy problem, so it doesn't cost as much because somebody else has actually figured out the scale, right? Either OpenAI, Claude, somebody has figured out the scale, so you don't have to figure out the scale. So as a startup, I think you have to be smart about figuring out, hey, is there in my journey, right? These guys will have huge scale and they will go after the 99.9% outcome. But as a startup, do you have some use case where even with 85-90%, you can actually use AI? I think that is a great place to start, where you can actually accelerate your company, and it's happening in financial services, more so I would say outside of insurance right now, but it's sort of coming. In terms of sort of bank tech, and we've seen lots of bank tech companies come up over the last, I would say 10 years, and you had this big UPI movement, right? And what happened with this UPI movement was suddenly you had crazy concurrency hitting the old core banking system, and these two things just didn't mesh, right? And now with all of these affinity partnerships, the distribution partnerships and so on, at least we hear that same thing is happening with insurance. And therefore, there is an opportunity to do this hollowing out the core kind of approach, which is essentially, hey, I'm not really going to touch the past. It's very hard. I'm not going to touch some of those parts of it. And I'd love to know from Anup sir, is that how you thought about actually adding new companies? Just say that I have my old IT guys who and IT service providers who will still work on the core. But then whenever I'm looking at these tech interface or partnership interfaces, that's where we will introduce sort of new tech. And that's the opportunity for a startup to actually say, this is a partnership that we can do with someone like them.
No, absolutely. Because you see, our insurance product is not one product, because you have payment terms, you have policy terms. So it could be, 10 pay, the policy could be running for 25, which there could be deferral after 10 pay, 2 years deferral. And the moment you start to think of it in permutation combination perspective, then you will have riders, then you'll have other features, etc. Certainly, one product will be equal to 4,000 points. It is as complex. We don't sometimes, it doesn't hit us from outside. So one product will be 4,000 points just because of permutation combination. But And so what happens is, and this thing has to be there for 15, 20, 25 years. So every time sort of you say that I'm going to give this bonus announcements and bonus has to be applied to so many places, etc. So like you're right that actually on policy administration, it is virtually a monopoly. I mean, there's Life Asia, there are only 2 or 3. Nobody attempts to do this, and because nobody wants to take the risk of shifting out. Because life insurance, I'm talking of life insurance particularly, not general insurance. I can speak about general insurance, but I'm talking life insurance. Life insurance is a very peculiar ALM problem. And the peculiar ALM problem is, it's a management ALM problem. That if I have a 5-year term, every policy that I write is beyond my term. So we think of ALM as, tenor ALM, interest rate ALM. There's a management ALM here. That whatever policy I write today, all the policies that I've written, I'll be dead. I will be dead. Forget client to jab hoga usko claim milega. I will also be dead by the time that policy. So error which if it gets introduced early, you don't get to catch it till 10, 50. So your probability, your inference quality has to be really 100% to do that. And so there is a lot of audit on product setups and all of it, because 4,000 points and and people sell all kinds of points out of this 4,000. So that code we keep it. Rest you take out one by one and you surround it. Just think of it like a solar system. No? The sun constant hai, and then you have a solar system which then links it back to it. So that's what. So you don't hollow the code, because I've been on the back seat when UPI came. So fortunately, I was part when Credit Bureau was getting born, and then again I was reborn when UPI came in front of my eyes. So this concurrency is a big issue. It locks the database and all of it. So you are forced to do it. Now, insurance is not a high transacting business. Life insurance is not a high transacting business, but it's a very long-term business with many modal points in a product. It is not like savings accounts, it is simple. FDs are simple products. So the complexity is of a different order. So hollowing out PAS, I don't think is possible. Nobody will do, but outside that we have followed out.
So, I advise a lot of
insurance bureaus and all of it.
So I advise a lot of enterprise software companies, and we call it, what is your insertion point into the stack, right? So there is a tech stack.
Yes.
Kahan ghusna hai, right? Like what is that insertion point in?
Why does
So that's so. Do you see that there is an obvious point where this is a low-hanging pain point?
I don't think PAS should be the point, because it's just too dense, too coarse.
Yeah.
You will not be able to do, but you can enter through, persistency. You can enter persistency management. You can enter through claims management. You can enter through fraud management. You can enter through onboarding journeys. You can enter through micro market. There are 1,000 ways of entering, which is a surround system, which is not the core PAS. Core PAS is very, very difficult to enter, and nobody will take a risk. See, banking core systems have not got disrupted, by the way. मतलब हम बोलते सब कुछ रहते हैं. See, banking तो मैंने started banking.
I've heard the formula is also known to only like 10 people in India. So
No. So it was banks 2000, by the way, Infosys. So I was in Bangalore. Started 1994. It was banks 2000, became Finacle and all of it. See, all this thing about hollowing the core and all, ये propaganda hai. It's a propaganda. Hollowing the core has not got hollowed.
Yeah.
Surround system has improved. Okay, and transaction load has been managed. Hollow वाला कुछ नहीं हुआ है.
No,
It is an accounting system, and so one by one the transaction, for example, the transaction systems have been taken out, credit has been taken out, cash management has been taken out. UPI trying to be taken out. Abhi one ही people are trying. So वो सब हुआ है, but the core accounting system is still very solid, and it is constant, just like PAS.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I couldn't agree more with what Sir just said. I'll just give 3 examples of, from my own surrounding. One, I think where a lot of, digitization or entry point for enterprise software companies is on the entire banca assurance piece, right? So the entire banca assurance business, when it started getting built out, उस समय corporate agency model होता था, and each bank could work with perhaps 3 insurance companies. Now the corporate agency model has got liberalized, and each bank can work with 9 insurance companies in each segment. So that is now they can work with 27 insurance companies. And when you walk into a HDFC Bank or AS Bank or ICICI Bank, you will see more folks from insurance companies selling insurance there than the bank's own employees, right? एंड किसी को नहीं पता होता कि कौन सा प्रोडक्ट क्यों बेचना है, किस लिए बेचना है, या उसकी सर्विसिंग कैसे होगी, बैंक्स के लिए रिकन्सिलेशन कैसा होगा. So bunch of companies have started solving this problem, right? Within our own organization, we have a company called HEF, which is a company within a company model. We've now been digitizing the entire, sourcing part for a lot of banks and BFCs. The second area where Sir rightly said is persistency. There's a Bombay-based company called Value Enable. It's set up by ex-HDFC Life folks. They're doing a brilliant job in solving for the problem of persistency. And in companies where they've got installed, I think ICICI Prudential is also using Value Enable. They've seen, a great movement in the persistency of customers. Now they're also trying to solve another problem where you can get loan against your life policies, etc. The third obviously is claims management. Renew by a company which we are acquiring, right? They have another company within one of their subsidiaries, RTVetic, is actually solving for the problem of claims management. They work very closely with a bunch of life and SAHI companies, and they've just signed up a GI company also. And they've seen the cost of servicing a claim, right, coming down significantly. I am yet to see in India solutions of scale which are able to solve for the problem of fraud control in insurance. I think that is one area which is waiting, some bright minds to come together and solve for the problem of fraud management, right? I think India में वो बहुत बड़ा problem है solve करने के लिए.
I must say, there in that corner is part of my team. He has a AI pass thesis, right? कि AI से पक्का होगा. You have really killed that thesis, poor guy. But it is interesting, at least, and we were doing some work around it, but at least globally. And so we have seen some AI pass startups, but they are actually looking at things globally. And it's surprising that there are some RFPs that are actually starting to come out. So it's a little bit interesting.
अरे pain बहुत है.
हाँ, नहीं, वो
The solution.
बोलो ना उसको.
Pain बहुत. There is a lot of pain in the past because it's completely almost mainframe.
Yeah.
It's almost, well, these are all dinosaurian systems, but it's very hard to do. If anybody can see.
And he was looking at a case study for Ping An, and he gave me a bunch of these different data points. And like you said, they started with actually training the agents, consistency, and being able to deliver consistency, then internal.
Yeah.
But even someone like that, who is so tech first and affinity led, hasn't actually done this.
So it depends on the stage of the company you are, right? So if somebody is starting out now, they would love to work with a startup which can help them create a cutting edge pass. But for somebody who has a running business of say 20 crore customers, 20,000 crores a year premium, right? For him or her to make a change, it's very, very difficult, right? So for example, Nilesh is just starting out on his company, right? So I was chatting with Nilesh and Saurabh the other day. They are actually evaluating creating a policy administration system in-house. They said कि हमको बाहर का software नहीं चाहिए, हम खुद बना लेते हैं, because that will allow us to incrementally keep building on it, right? So it also depends on the size and scale of your operations.
It's a GI company. Yeah. So it's a GI company. GI, the big difference is GI is a 1-year contract. What happens in a 1-year contract is that the balance sheet composition changes 1 year.
Yeah.
You don't have to hold the policy for 25 years with 4,000 model parts.
Yeah.
So that is why actually you will see a lot of innovation on the GI side actually. And the fraud is also on the GI side, almost on the health side. I will say anywhere between 15 to 25% of the claims are fraudulent in some way or the other.
And actually, that was a question. Is it that the UPI equivalent thesis is more on the general side because there's just with all of this file use and the explosion of products and concurrency.
No, I think, see, my experience, my experience of this is, it's a context of a business. See, this whole issue is on the context of a business. It is not billions of words, mind. It is context of a business. The context of a general insurance business, because it's a 1-year business, it will attract many kinds of, because you can stop loss in 1 year. So if you put a capital, you can take out in 1 year. You can redeploy in 1 year. Okay. Similarly, on mutual fund, for example, on the mutual fund, you will see, all 43, 45 mutual fund. Capital लगता नहीं 50 crore का capital. But actually, if you really see the tail of mutual fund, why I'm saying mutual fund? Because it's a daily product. If you really see mutual fund, the top guys in pure equities, forget SIP, pure equities, if it is 4,000 crores, the 10th guy will be at less than 1,000 crores inflow. And after that, you'll be surprised 100 crores, 400, 200 crores, 70 crores inflow per month. And that's all. So, because it's a daily business, you can shift. Credit card, for example, is another business which is really, you can innovate, because every swipe, there's an opportunity. Every swipe, there's an opportunity. आज इधर क्या है? कल उधर कर दे. यहाँ पर तो, if you just want to take a insurance, life insurance, and you have a sum assured. Suppose, suppose his life is, let's say, about 20 crores. He takes one policy, he exhausts his 20 crores. He just cannot take another policy. You can take. Nobody will give him another 20 crores. Khatam ho gaya. So there is a capacity of a human value, and it doesn't come out in the market. In general insurance, every car comes out in the market for renewal. Fire, it will come out in the market. This doesn't come out in the... So context is critical to understand, and that is why I think the point is very important. Where do you enter is an important aspect, and you should be clear where you enter and why you enter. Any place where the turnover is high, you can add value. You can also add value. I can also stop loss. If I cannot stop loss, I'll be very, very careful about allowing you to enter. The concept of a framework समझना बहुत important है. Because I have done a broking, for example. There was a point in time where there were more broker shops than total bank branches in India. Okay. अभी तो पूरा digitize हो गया because ICICI direct के. It was the first time. Zerodha copied us. Zerodha took one inflection point. But what I'm saying is, because in broking, no barrier to entry. I can place one trade here, the second trade I can place somewhere else. Correct? So it is a frictionless world. Frictionless world का क्या होता है? You can move fast, you can fail fast also, but you can keep moving. So viscosity of a context is an important thing to understand. So once you understand the viscosity of a context, now there are two things. Can you reduce the viscosity of the context? Because there is a great bearing, for example, in past. If you can reduce the viscosity, very good. If it takes too much effort to reduce the viscosity, then the TAM should be very high. Otherwise, point ही नहीं है उसका करने का. So I would say that whenever we are thinking entry points, better to put entry points where the risk to the other counterparty is also lower. They will allow you to enter. Both sides get, then put stop loss and move on in life.
Yeah, I think we have very little time left, but I'll just cover the regulatory environment and sort of the support that Shiv gotten. So there are a lot of founders here. How should they think about manufacturing, distribution? I know we've spent a lot of time looking at different models. Where would we see them?
Actually, I want to ask him the question. You've seen the most of it. If you'd said top 2 recommendations for the new IRDAI chair, what would it be?
No, so there are two recommendations. One is that you have to really strengthen the insurance bureau. I'm saying if you're talking of protection first, you have to really strengthen the insurance bureau. It has to be at least brought at par with credit bureaus.
Yeah.
But even better because the leverage is higher.
Absolutely.
There are many large companies who still don't give the data. The largest life insurance company in India doesn't give data.
I'll tell you, at least because I've invested in so many lending companies. I think the formation of the credit bureau is the only thing that is actually spurred that entire innovation in the
India.
Yeah.
ओके
Yeah.
क्रेडिट ब्यूरो इज द BCNL एरिया पहले शक्ल देख के लोन दे के उड़ा दिया तुमने
हाँ सर.
अभी अलग अभी now also the credit scoring gaming happens but
Yeah.
they are almost to solve it. So one is you have to really do that. Second, what you have to do is for some products you have to standardize the product. But now the affordability plus standardization in life insurance has come through PMJJBY. By the way, there are 24 crores policies PMJJBY. So don't think that see हम लोग यहाँ बैंगलोर में इधर कैफे बैठ कर लगता कोई लेता नहीं ऐसा नहीं है 24 करोड़ है यहाँ. There are 24 crores and there are only 5 crore folios in mutual fund. I'm just talking of size. There are only 5 crore folios in mutual fund. 10 crore demat accounts. 33 crore life insurance policies in India. Just to give context for people who don't know. So so that is the second one is really PMJJBY. To make it affordable, they made it 1 year. You can may increase it a little bit. Third is, on the loan side, you can actually make the processes even easier so that at least loan is covered. At least, important thing is if something happens to you, family should not be left with liabilities.
Yeah.
And on the saving side, I think principal agent, so though third is the principal agent solution has to be solved. Because the distributor, the commission is very upfront. So principal agent, alignment is not. The principal agent alignment होना चाहिए, skin in the game होना चाहिए, बिल्कुल trail में होना चाहिए. And I would say that 40-50% of the commission should be paid on quality, persistency, early claims. तब जाके काम करेंगे. नहीं तो क्यों कोई काम करेगा? पैसा ले गया, पैसा चला गया, क्या करना है उसको? Right. So these three things we have to.
I'll let Ankit have the last word on this, but I'll say at least wish list from a regulatory perspective. One is, I think at least what we saw in other fintech spaces was actually the partnership framework between a manufacturer and a partner was very nicely, I think, defined, especially once UPI and PSP models came. And that actually spurred lots of company creation in those, right? Whether it was NBFC, whether...
There is no credit risk here. No, you must understand, transaction is a DVP model.
Yeah.
Delivery versus payment.
I'm not
model.
saying that.
The moment to put credit there,
Yeah.
okay, कहाँ हुआ है अभी भी तुम्हारा co-lending चालू नहीं हुआ है? See, I'm saying context understand. Payment is a DVP model.
Yeah.
Delivery versus payment.
So I'm not saying payment. I mean, I was saying, for example, let's actually...
Lending में अभी कहाँ हुआ है?
Why? So if you take, I mean, even NBFC is a simple framework to actually do these partnerships, right? But for example, here that extension would be an MGA model, right? For example, which could be a one way of saying that
On the general insurance side.
on the general insurance side, an MGA model is one way of actually saying, hey, there is a set of people who can innovate, and you actually house the risk as a manufacturer, right? So that's one way where you can borrow a framework from A. It has worked everywhere else, and it's a framework that you can easily borrow. The second, I would say, is at least whenever we have tried to shape things with the regulator, there's been enormous friction in terms of getting licenses and so on, both in terms of talent as well as in terms of net worth. So I think the bar on actually the
Entry is very high.
the entry is just so high that you actually can't get enough talent into the space.
So, I'll start with the last thing first. We'll have to understand what is insurance all about. It is not lending. Lending is sell it, shut it, forget it. वर्स्ट केस क्या होगा, आपने किसी को 5 लाख रुपए का लोन दिया, आपका लोन में पैसा डूब जाएगा. इंश्योरेंस, यू आर गिविंग समबडी अ प्रॉमिस. आप किसी के साथ एक वादा कर रहे हो, अगर खुदा ना खास्ता कल को आपको कुछ हो गया तो आपके जाने के बाद हम आपके परिवार के साथ हैं. अगर आप अस्पताल में हो या आपके परिवार का कोई अस्पताल में, तो हम आपके साथ हैं. The entry barrier for this kind of product has to be high, or you have to have people of extremely high credibility building a product. See, the regulator has also burnt their hands. Yeah. It's not that in insurance, the regulator did not give out licenses. The regulator, I will not take the names of the companies, the regulator in GI space gave out at least 4 licenses between 2017 to 2019. Of that, only one company has got to a size and scale. One of those companies has, 2 of those companies are of subscale. The promoters have exited, the promoters have sold multiple times. The third company keeps trying to raise capital every 6 to 9 months. The regulator cannot put the life of so many people at risk. Let's please understand that, right? So the regulator is very clear, because I have also had parlays with the regulator at some point of time. We were also evaluating, thinking of whether we want to do it or not. The regulator is very clear. If there is a person of repute, right? So for example, in Digit, they gave the license because there was a person of repute, and there was somebody who had earlier done an insurance company, a financial investor, and they backed it, right? So the regulator is very clear: as a person of repute and a good pedigreed financial investor is there, we will allow them to do. And they've been allowing it in cases. We've seen they've done it with Nilesh, they're doing it with two more people I know, right? So at least 3 licenses I know the regulator is allowing. They will not allow it for anybody and everybody, because we burnt our hands. Second, it's very easy and very cool to talk about NGA, right? 3-4 years ago during COVID, VFox, one of the most celebrated and most valuable InsurTech names globally, they said we will get into MGA. They expanded their business across multiple geographies in Europe. Today, that company is not even 10% of where it was. Billions of dollars of investor money, billions of dollars of premium has gone down the drain. There are certain skill sets for which you really need to make investment, and you really need decades and decades of experience. Insurance is one of those sectors, right? Is disruption necessary in this sector? Yes, disruption is necessary. Let me just complete my point. Is disruption necessary in this sector? Yes, disruption is necessary in this sector. But we will also have to understand there is a human cost of life attached to that disruption. Just 30 seconds more. My wish list with the regulator will be that we should have uniformity in policies, and we should have continuity across regime changes, because here every 3 years a new chairman comes, right? So there has to be continuity in the policies. Second, do we need to bring down distribution costs? Yes, I am a distributor and I'm saying we need to bring down distribution costs, because only if we bring down distribution cost will we be able to make this industry a profitable industry. In the GI space, hardly anybody is making money in the insurance manufacturing space, right? लोग पैसा अगर नहीं बनाएंगे तो धंधा profitable नहीं होगा. Profitable नहीं होगा. It's the same message which we are talking about, right? Post 2021, all VCs are asking profit क्या है भाई? Growth नहीं चाहिए, profit चाहिए, right? So that transition has to happen in this industry also.
No, you said consistency, and you just had me, so I don't want to say anything after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we might have, Ankit, do you have time for 2 questions?
Yeah, I have this.
Yeah, sure. Let me have.
There you go.
This is Prakash. I represent Reality. Glad that you talked about core because we have managed to sunset a couple of Robatia systems and FIS systems in India now. The last one, the most recent one that's happening this month is on America Life on the group side of business. A question to you is fundamental.
That is on the group side of the business.
On the
1 year business, group side. 1 year business.
It's Group Asia biggie.
Yeah. I know. Sure.
The question is relatively slightly different in the sense that we have all seen that embedded has a very, very great opportunity for making people buy more of insurance because it can't be put in everything. Why is it that on the life side in particular, you don't get long-term embedded employers to buy 5 minutes?
So can you just help me with life long term? See, first of all, from a regulatory perspective in India, for some reasons they don't like embedded products.
Yes.
Okay, because they think that, and I don't disagree with them completely also, that yeah, embedded matlab kya hai? He will not even know what he has bought. Then after 5 years, he will suddenly wake up, and then I'll not pay him his money back.
Yeah, it's a simple thing like travels. If you look at it, if I want to buy it, I can buy for my trip. On life,
And so again, put the birthday.
I can take a 1 year at least, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be about Isaac or cash.
So, for example, embedded product, most of the credit, see, because you have done Group Asia, you would see the credit-like products, largely embedded products. In MFI, the attachment ratios, when they are 90% plus, they are embedded products. So credit life is an embedded product. Okay, and it works very well on an embedded product. Now, individual policies embedded is a misnomer because they're individual policies. So group policies largely either they are on the chassis of a group, for example, group term where the employer employee embedded product and then nobody has a choice. वो ले लो आप group में खरीद लो, bulk purchase and then retail. So it is B2B2C or B2B2C again, 1 year group term product or credit life products on mortgage you get attached. So embedded product is very much there in India. मतलब ठीक है नाम हम उसको embedded नहीं है embedded करते यार regulator tomorrow may come.
But life, I mean, you can't really take 1 year.
But PMJJBY is a 1 year life because you have to make it affordable and you want to make it at 436 rupees for 2 lakhs. What to do?
Yeah, but if I have to buy it, I mean, let's say I go to make my trip and I say that I won't buy a
1 year.
cover for travel.
1 year.
That doesn't come.
No, travel is 1 year.
Travel is 1 year only.
See, that's what I'm saying. Travel is like you pay.
Agent, but not online.
No, so if see in life, who will buy 1 year life? You see, you look at it from a understanding. So 1 year life, essentially there will be anti-selection. There is a big anti-selection life. See, ultimately mortality is a law of large numbers and no anti-selection. That's the real game of statistics. 1 year खरीदेगा ही कौन भाई?
जिसको भरोसा नहीं है कि वो एक साल
हाँ?
बेचेगा कौन?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions that, yeah, please. Ankit, thanks a lot. I know you have flight to catch. Please, and Rajit, give me a quick look. Yeah, I'll be. Just small token.